Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Tina, and today we have some really, really wonderful, amazing guests who are actually two-time MegaGrant winners for their vertical third tool set. But today we're going to be talking about a project that they've actually been diving into recently. And before we dive into that and get our guests introduced for today, there's a few quick news beats I wanted to make sure y'all know about in case you weren't aware. The first is that we have actually released a new royalty reporting system. You can find a link to a blog that goes through the entire thing on our news feed. But as a quick rundown, up until now, developers whose products rely on engine code at runtime and generated more than 1 million in USD in lifetime revenue calculated royalties manually with every quarterly report. This improved process, which launched a couple days ago, will save time and take out the guesswork for anyone that owes royalties under the Unreal Engine EULA. The main things that improved with this new royalty reporting system is everything is all in one place. There's an automatic royalty calculation included, there's timely reminders, and there's a history view. So you can go back and see all of your royalty reports for your organization that has been submitted whenever. So hopefully, this will make the process a little bit easier, a little bit smoother. For those of you who may have had issues with going through that in the past, hopefully this will help smooth things out in the future. And for anyone that has done royalty reporting before, it will all be moving over to the developer portal from this point forward. So make sure you check it out so you can see all of your stuff there, confirm that it's working right, you've got everything you need. But yeah, wanted to make sure you know about that. You can check that out. That's on the developer portal, which you can access through the Epic developer community. We'll drop a link for that in the chat here. Mods are already on it because they're great. And then the next news beat for today is there's a whole bunch of learning content that's available here in March. I think it was 9. Let me count. Y'all know I'm not the greatest at math. 9! 9 great tutorials that we wanted to make sure we pointed out for you for March. All of them are free. All of them are available on the Epic developer community, and they're great. Go through a whole series of different kinds of topics. There's another blog that goes through with a quick description of each tutorial in the link that we'll be dropping in chat here. So if you have some time and you want to learn some new cool stuff, make sure you check that out. Then the last thing is I wanted to make sure that we talked about the limited free content that's available on Fab. There's some really great stuff going on right now. I mean, there always is, but the stuff that's available right now is there's a magician library environment that also includes VFX. There's a hand-painted series of different kinds of loot, bunch of assortment of loot, and then a space cruiser that is also available for free. And that is only free until April 8th. So if you're interested in any of those, make sure you go nab them while you still can. But that's it for news. And we'll get into the actual topic for today's stream, which I'm very excited about, which is Ruins of Tearyn. So let's go ahead and introduce our wonderful guest for today. Kristen, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I am Kristen. We are builders of Vertical Third and Ruins of Terran. We also did the courses on Coursera for Epic Games. We're teachers for 5 through 8. And we really like to teach game development and do game development, but we also love video games and making them. And so that's what we do here.
Awesome. Fantastic to have you here. Y'all may recognize both of them. They've been on the show a few times before. Always lovely to have you back. And then, Chris, for those who might not know, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself as well?
Hello, I'm Christopher Main, and I am the technical guy on Vertical Third and Runes of Terran. And this is basically this is kind of like our love child for our game. Like we've spent almost like 5 or 7 years working on Vertical Third, which is a tech product. It's a massive game architecture, and as many game making enthusiasts, we have that dream of making an MMO, and so we've spent a lot of that time really digging into game architecture, different workflows, how to proactively try and build something that large. And we've been spending all this time creating our different systems, creating quest systems and combat systems, and these different things that we would need to in the future build an MMO. And so this is we're going through today is Ruins of Tearyn, and we'll be kind of talking through everything about it and our progress so far. It is a project that actually only started in November of last year, but because we have all this tech and that we've been spending so much time on that, we've made some pretty good progress so far. So I know we have a short video coming up soon that kind of like sort of introduces everything. You might notice that we've made a lot of changes to the environment, but we'll get to that shortly.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and roll that video so we can see what we're digging into today, shall we?
Welcome to the documentation of the world's smallest MMO. This video will explain the following: the what, the who, the why, and the how. So please, like, subscribe to stay updated with Ruins of Tearyn. Without further ado, let's dive in. Ruins of Tearyn is a classic fantasy MMO with tab targeting. You will retain 2 targets at all times, an ally and an enemy. There will be formidable warriors, epic healers, try-hard DPS, and mesmerizing enchanters. Combat will be slower paced, rewarding game knowledge, positioning, environment awareness, and group composition. Managing threat will be a key factor for all players to use skills wisely and with intent. The world will be dangerous, so it's best to group up with family and friends. But there will still be options for solo content. We are 100% focused on gameplay and will be using marketplace assets until later stages of development. And this leads us to we're a 2-person development team. We have nearly a decade of experience in Unreal. Won a few awards for Vertical Third, a game architecture that took 5 years to build. You can check out the stream or listen to the TLDR right now. That's a whole lot of stuff. There's an online tech demo we can play with your friends right now. We also spent a year working on a game development course and how to build a boba shop. As we create Ruins of Tearyn, our updates will improve Vertical Third for other developers in the future. And now, let's find out. We both grew up playing NeverQuest. And then we later met on World of Warcraft. And now we're ready to create our own recipe. While we love the classic era of MMOs, we want to keep what is good and update what is not so good. You can think of it as toast. Toast is great, but it's better when you have some butter and jam. And now, let's explore. We're focused on small levels with very content-packed areas, which will avoid time spent on large empty spaces. Each level will be its own zone and server, which dramatically simplifies the technology we need. With Vertical Third and Unreal Engine, we're implementing content right now. We are starting with 3 small development stages. Once these are complete, we'll have a vertical slice ready to stress test. Our development will be very open. with live streams, YouTube videos, and you can support our development through our Ko-fi page. Our first playtest is targeting April 2025. And that concludes the what, who, why, and how for Ruins of Tearyn. So please come along for the journey. We love to show the behind the scenes for development and share our experience. We'll see you there.
That's
So
us.
good.
Cheese is real. I have to admit, you can't not have, a person that works with you that isn't full of cheese. It just keeps the daylight,
Oh,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I was muted because I was dying through a
I
huge
know.
portion of that. It was the cutest ever. I have been wandering around because I've seen the video before. I'm sorry, spoiler everyone, but I've been wandering around and I'll just randomly quote, "It's like toast." So good.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I would love to learn more about this. So, like you said, you guys started with Vertical Third, and now you're using that same tooling that you had built for this project overall, right? Walk me through it. What's this process for you?
Yeah, so all of our tools, and we can actually, I think it'd be a good time to just cut to our screens right now. You can cut to me first. So, as the video mentioned, that we're going to be having a playtest in April, and this is kind of serves as our like little pre-test to make sure everything's working. And so we're actually using. I've been using PlayFab for years, and we're online right now with PlayFab. We have a small group compiled together with our team here, and we're going to be walking through just a lot of the systems that we've developed through Vertical Third and are now implemented into Ruins of Terran, and just to really show a lot of our progress. And so we have some actual basic classes in, and just in the classic fashion. I'm playing as a warrior. We have Game of Beauty as an enchanter who specializes in crowd control. We have it's Lady Arias on a mage, and we have Axel on a cleric. So very much your traditional, like a lot of our inspiration obviously comes from both EverQuest and World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft, Game of Beauty and I actually met on World of Warcraft back in 2004. We've been married 19 years together for 20 as of March 30th. So it's like mini little anniversary celebration here. But then prior to World of Warcraft, we both played EverQuest separately, and we both had very different experiences. And I was very much the person that kind of flipped alts a lot, had a lot of fun time spent leveling up in different characters, different zones, just leveling, really falling in love with that core gameplay loop of leveling and just meeting people. I think that was the other part of it. Just being a social game at the time for EverQuest. And um, I didn't get a lot of social interaction in school. I was very much an introvert, but I could log into EverQuest itself and be able to group up with people and like fight monsters and do these things. And so, whereas the beauty, and she could talk on this, she had a wildly different um, experience in EverQuest. I always say she had me at EverQuest, so she could talk about her experience on that side.
Well, I was definitely raid heavy. I started when I was a kid, and my brother is 10 years older than me. So I was lucky to have a older sibling that really loved games. And so he would use me as his gold farmer in reality. And so for a long while, when back in 1989 was around, he would definitely use me for going and getting things and leveling himself up. And eventually, when Kunark came out, he was so nice and gifted me my own account. So that was pretty cool. And then I, kind of eventually became fifth top in the world for being my class as a healer. And so that was pretty cool. an achievement. So clearly won the sibling rivalry for bettering games, but but we had it was a very different situation because I did a lot of first fights and a lot of different experience when it came to like the actual game mechanics and how to figure those out. And those were things that I think obviously ultimately ended up in my journey of being a developer, as we all have as developers. We all start out as players that think of this game in a much deeper level. And so that's what I think is this game is there because we love that genre, and we loved EQ, we loved WoW, we loved played Age of Conan, we played Vanguard, we played all of these games that were around, were just a part of our history. Ages of Conan, like you name it, like we were hard in it. And it was one of those mentalities of that set out 10 years ago where we're like, man, one day maybe we'll make an MMO, right? And eventually we started making, a game called Castle Day, which you saw at the very entrance there, a little bit intro there. It's a little bit of a relations towards our story in Castle Day. And we eventually went into being like, hey, we need to make tools. We need to make tech. If we're going to build something like this, we need to really make sure that we're a two-person team. How are we supposed to do this? How are we supposed to keep up with content? How are we supposed to make patches? And so that's actually how Vertical Third was born. And that was almost 7 years ago. And so if you want to know what we're about to get into, it is literally the fact that this game is a lot further than you would expect, specifically because we spent over 10 years building our tech for it. And so now we're going in since November, and we built that whole video in the engine, which we had a blast doing. We got to show our journey a little bit, and that was really cool. And so here we're going to be able to show you. We're lucky we have our friends with us here, and we are going to play. And we thought we'd show you guys some of those mechanics and maybe our mentality of what we're thinking. We actually are going to be able to, if you're interested, please follow our Discord. We would love for you to join the Discord. We're actually this whole weekend till Monday, we are going to have our servers live. So this is on the Epic Games Store. Currently, it is hidden. Okay, but if you go on our Discord, you can actually ask us, hey, I want to play, and we will gift you a key for free. There is no money attached to this, but we would love for you to come visit and come and play. So yes, this is actually technically live right now, but our April launch is going to be more official for sure. And obviously, this is still being built as we go. Remember, we started this in November, so we have quests in right now. If Dan wants to go to my screen real quick, I'll let him go to me real fast. On my side of the screen, you'll see that we have quests over here. These are temporary quests. We just wanted to kind of show that we actually have them. We have like separate ones. We actually have some cool ones with some of our streamer watchers and our viewers. They actually implement quests in for us here. And so we wanted to have all the people that follow us on Twitch be able to implement their life into our game. So we have several different quests that are all based on people's journey that they wanted.
That's one point that we really want to make. This is, we really are trying to develop this as open as possible. And so a couple of these quests, we were just asking our chat, like, what type of quest do you want to see in Ruins of Tearyn? And they gave us some ideas, and we're just kind of like throwing them in that interpretation of things. And so we really want to involve our community in the development of this. And like, we have our game direction, and we want to see how everyone feels with that, and get a lot of feedback through playtests as we go with everything.
Yeah, which is awesome. I love that people get to actually be part of this process too, not just watching it, but actually involved with it. That's really cool.
Yeah, and we want to be able to really make people understand that this is here for also questions. Like, as a developer, like, we know what it's like to have to go and figure out how do you do this online in a in an indie field. This is normally something that you would only understand in a AA or a AAA environment, and this is something we wanted to make sure that people of all types, so you can have that one man MMO ever happen. This is something that we do thrive upon is knowledge is power. And that's something that we should share and we shouldn't gatekeep. And so we are here to help and we always are on our Twitch when we're there. Um, and it's something that in our Discord, we're always open to talk to anybody that has any questions if they don't see us live or anything like that. We're always open to conversation about any questions that developers might have or why we structured something. Also, this is entirely in Blueprint, and we do have a couple people online right now. We're hoping to push this up even more. We've gotten up to about 50 people so far, and we haven't had any issues. So we're trying to definitely push those bars. Oh, I'm not sure if you saw me get booped right there. So we have a funny little tip on this one. So we haven't synchronized our storms yet. Our weather, we have a day and night cycle, we have a storm cycle, all in this, and we haven't synchronized it to the client yet. And so if you see me just randomly being tossed to the side, this is why it is lightning strike being struck upon me without me knowing. So if you see it, that is what it's from. So let's try and actually group up. Do you want to group up with everybody, Chris?
Yeah.
Do you want to go to Chris's or do you want to go to mine?
You can invite me. That's fine.
Okay. Let's try to get
While you're
everybody.
getting grouped up, I do have a quick question from chat here
Yeah.
that I figured I'd throw
Please.
y'all's way.
Throw them
They're
out.
curious if that is a skybox or a dynamic sky that you're using in this.
This is not a skybox.
So it is it's actually another marketplace product we have here. It's the So Stylized package for weather systems. And it's actually a really cool different package that we're using. And it has a lot of different effects. Now the Aurora effect is something completely separate.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things we've implemented into this project as well. And so that's
Very
one of
cool.
those ways that we're really trying to just be 100% focused on gameplay itself. And so we're using, as people know, like our characters right now are Cindy Studios. It's a known developer marketplace asset creator. And we're using that right now because we're not ready to really invest into that character development for art, because that can get really costly really quickly. And so we want to just really flush out as much of the gameplay as possible. So we'll be using, for quite a while, we'll be using a lot of marketplace assets to really flush all of that out.
And just a little other tip, you might be surprised, but lots of developers use Quixel assets as well. It's something that people don't quite know, but it is very much a thing that people use all the time. And we are currently using those kind of assets when it comes to the actual ground. You'll see the actual material over here is using these. And so I really wanted to make a blend of between of realistic environment, but also a very stylized approach when it came to the actual trees. These are all, everything here is all interactable. All of our entire foliage in the entire world is interactable. So we wanted to kind of bring New World a little bit when it comes into this. Is everything is interactable. We want it to be very, what is it, Delicious in Dungeon focused. We love that show so much. It's like our fave. And so we really wanted to implement food and the things around you as actual things to use. So while we're in the group here, I'm trying to invite these other ones. I'm not sure if they
I
invited
just poked them
themselves.
to make sure they're out of their group, to watch for the group invite.
Oh, okay. Because they have an invite pending. We might have to have you invite if they didn't.
All right, let me try inviting them.
Problem when we're on chat here. The latency of real time. Like, why aren't we in Discord? Discord's so much easier.
I mean, if we want a snapshot of exactly how MMOs play, this is a huge part of
This
it.
is it.
You're already in a
100%.
party. You have to unparty first. Come on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. This is like all real MMO stuff, right?
We just don't have the errors prompting you in the face yet.
Yes. So just know that that's why it's not there. We're still, like I said, in development, super development. This has been like November. So right now we actually have a cute verb quest. We actually did it for one of our people that watch us stream a lot. He is also a developer, but he's in Unity, and he really made a cool flight a simulator type of game. So we wanted to make his entire game about burps, and so because they fly. So that is what this is. We wanted to make some of the quest items actually purple, so that you actually could tell the difference between them. So that's what we did. Let's see. I think that I finished it all, I believe. Let me go turn this in real fast.
That's one thing
Awesome.
we're pointing out here is, as we've mentioned, like our inspiration for this game does come from both EverQuest and WoW, and so like we have some quests implemented, but they're really just there for functionality,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
we're not like super focused on like a massive quest game, and
Yeah.
we'll be really changing some of the flow. Like we don't really like the whole like go to the quest hub, get a million quests, go do
Yeah.
stuff. Like we're going to be changing that up a lot. We have a perspective on the leveling journey that we really want you to like find your way that you have fun leveling. For some people, that's questing. For some people, that's killing monsters. For some people, that might be crafting. Some people, it's PvP. So we really want a large variety of different ways you can level, and we want to make sure that in each of those situations you feel like you're actually you're productive, and you're not like, oh, this other method of leveling is a million times faster than this method. And so I'm someone that loves to explore dungeons, and I would love in the future to have a lot of different dungeons. Starting from, we just popped into the game, and we're able to group up with a team of people and just go directly to a dungeon if we want to go have that experience. And so,
So we
um,
did get a couple quests here. One was just a crafting quest, which is another streamer that wanted to make a funny a sword quest that ultimately turns out to be the worst mushroom suitor on the planet. But like it's your not you're not gonna know that. So first and foremost, we're gonna start pulling here. I think Chris is he's the tank right now. And so one of the things I wanted to mention for the environment, we really want it to be actually very alive, that feeling um uh, of everything feeling very much more integrated in the leveling process. So we actually thought, what if there was a time where we don't have a healer sometimes, and we don't want to cut out a healer because I mean, I mained one, I have full love for them. They are like very important, but there's always the time where, you kind of want to go and play something else with your friend, whether it be, your partner or your best friend or whatever it is, or by yourself. And being able to have this mentality of actually doing something interactive to help each other. I made these trees right over here. I'm calling them Canadian syrup machines over here because we have a Canadian over here, and we got to have some maple trees kind of mentality in here. We got to. So this one actually is kind of cool. They're magic trees. All these ones right here that have the purple, and they actually give a very very short duration heal buff and regen buff to be able to help you in those oh crap moments when you're like, oh my God, we're about to die. We have some ads. Go run to a tree. So it's kind of like making people out resource when they need it. Now, obviously, they have a cooldown. They are not always up. They have like I think a 5 minute or 2 minute cooldown. So you have to be careful. They are not always there. We kind of wanted to show that as well, is being able to allow your environment to be still interacting with the play, and so that it's more social environment and not just a healer staring at the bar. So if there is a healer in the group and you don't need them to be crazy intensive, they can go and have fun and like, hit things. And then, we want rogues and we want hunters to also be more like this is reliant on not just the healer. We want people to like think outside the box, utilize their tools. Like I think even hardcore WoW does, keeping people with bandages on them, thinking about, test dummies that people drop down and stuff like that to actually distract themselves. Those are things that are important. Oh, you started he started a monster that I already had going.
I'm the tank. I hit things. Okay. Right.
The tank that doesn't check to
Just
see if
heal me.
there's
All right.
already something in the camp. That's my friend over here, Christopher.
And one quick point I wanted to mention,
Yeah.
that she mentioned classic hardcore WoW, And I think that is one of like the most important MMO design studies that's kind of come around in the last recent years, because there's this main talk these days of MMOs have kind of lost their identity of what type of game they are in today's day, and because they've always been the game that like that's supposed to be one of the games that's the most social game. You have tons of people around, you have tons of players, and that is one of the games that is really supposed to try and have that identity of bringing people together and doing cool things in the game. And the thing I just love so much about Classic Hardcore WoW is just how much the communities have grown with that. And we played it before the classic. We played it with the add-on before the official servers and all those things, and seeing the community grow around that. But and that's just from like the concept of it, but also from WoW is typically known, especially from like the 1 to 60. It's typically known as a very easy game. It's not that difficult. It's not that complicated. But when you take an easy game and have a very harsh death penalty, all of a sudden you have people grouping up for the easiest content in the world, just as that factor of not wanting to die, not wanting to have that death penalty. So it's one of those things that we're looking at. Like obviously, we're not going to have a permanent death thing just out of the gate as one of the death penalty goals, but it could be a little bit more harsh in ways that's a good balance between everything. And so that's something that we really want to find a good balance on as far as things go. And so it's just something that's just you think about any MMO that's trying to innovate some sort of new concept, and that's just something that's caught our eye on just interesting behavior, specifically on how it drives kind of the social systems together of everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm not sure if you
I
notice here, I did mez some things. He's luckily been awesome and hasn't broken them asleep. So I just want to mention we're bringing back the enchanter that I loved so much in EverQuest. It is a very control heavy class, which has never been redone. The only time it was ever put in another game was Vanguard. It was never utilized in any other game. I cannot believe it. It's something I feel is a missing awesome class, and that's sole purpose of being a crowd control master. And that means being able to, like they have clarity buffs, they have haste buffs, but they also have memory wipes. And then they have actual mez control. So that means being able to control an entire group. So if things go south, they can have like, 5 or 6 people actually mezzed. They just have to remember their pattern. That's kind of like that memory game where you're remembering where things are on the table with the cards, the matching ones. It's like kind of a memory game, making sure you know what's what and your team properly, being aware of those things and not breaking your mez and trying to kill you. But go ahead, Tina. Sorry.
Oh no, that was actually perfect because I was going to ask if you wouldn't mind describing maybe some of the abilities that you were using and the
Yeah.
thought process behind them.
Okay.
Maybe what some of because I see a second bar underneath the health bar as
Yes.
well on the enemies.
Yes. So I was gonna mention that that's also a threat bar. We're gonna bring threat very heavy into this. I will actually go and pull this when I shouldn't. I'm gonna go and pull this here. You'll see this here.
I'm
Hey,
encouraging
I'm
bad
an
tactics.
enchanter. I'm an enchanter. I have power over here. I have super power. So I'm gonna mez this one to my left. So I'm gonna mez that one. Of course, my pet decides to go and hit it instead. How rude. How rude.
Oh
Oh,
my
that
God,
might have
we
not
have
been. Oh, this one.
we have
This
someone
one
breaking
right here broke my mess. See, this is what happens. So see that threat? Yeah. I'm now he needs yes. Oh, I should have gotten a res. I forgot. Jade's on Axel's on a cleric. I had a res there and I released, guys. That's my bad.
Oh, someone's gonna run back.
That's my bad, guys.
Again,
I'm used to
classic MMO experience, frankly.
no, right?
Well, you can
This is
customize
when you
stream
type
real
in
quick.
all caps. You had
Yeah.
a
Yes. Oops. I don't have warlocks yet to summon me. I can't do that yet. But remember, we're not going to be like popping certain things. But I just feel like the enchanter was just it was a crowd control king, and it was such a fun class that I feel so many people would have enjoyed in games. And there's been such limited crowd control in games and MMOs, so I wanted to kind of bring that back. Sorry, she's chopping down a tree. It looks like. Yep. Okay, now I'm back and I'm not dead for now. But if you see here, I'm going to hit stun and there's an actual threat meter right here. And when I go over that threat meter, it will actually tell me the percentage I have over that threat. So that's really encouraging people that are playing DPS classes and all of that are to really watch their actual threat. And so this is also another tool that we wanted to put in. I'm gonna hopefully get this thing really mad at me. I'm gonna mez it and be annoying right here, and you'll see how my meter goes up. And I'm mezzing it. So now it's like 17. He's coming for me right here.
And we really want to have a different form of skill expression. We feel like we feel like games focus too much on your gameplay rotation, and obviously we know that it has other implications of people trying to top DPS meters
Yep.
and get on the top of the list of those things, which makes them sometimes not pay attention to the fire on the ground.
Yeah.
And so we want to really have a different form of skill expression that it comes through being aware of your surroundings, aware of the game mechanics, if it's a raid boss or a normal boss, um, using the actual game mechanics to defeat the boss versus just mindlessly kind of like bashing your buttons.
Do we want to go to spiders, by the way?
Oh yeah, the spiders.
You
I
guys are
forgot
going
about
the
that.
wrong way.
Going the wrong
We're
way.
supposed to go to spiders. Let's go get some spiders. Come on.
And on a quick note, if you can cut to me, one of the ways we've separated and this comes straight from Vertical Third, we've actually separated our inventories from your loot inventory. You can see I have my gear. I can equip all that just fine. But then you have your quest inventory that has all your quest items and all your quest information there as well. But then we have a third inventory for your crafting supplies. And we have all the different crafting supplies. These are still a little bit stock from Vertical Third with a lot of our pre-built database that we've created over the years. But
Sure.
it really allows, I think we've all had the experience of, why is quest items in my inventory space? This is stupid, and so we've really fulfilling that pet peeve of things. And so there's a lot of those pet peeves that we're fixing that. Not in Runes of Terra.
Yes.
Quality of life. It's important.
Yes, it is. It is. It's a quality that's important to us. But yeah, we really wanted to kind of like show that you can definitely so we ran this a little bit last night and we didn't have a healer. And that was actually really fun going in here without a healer because we're really trying to implement the fact that you're stronger together than you are alone. So obviously we really encourage that we want to bring in that social interaction. And I feel like it's just been taken out a lot in MMOs these days. And I know I strived on it and back in the day. So a spider's about to add. Hold on. Hopefully nobody grabs it. Oh, not come on, pet. Oh, my pet is being awful, guys. My pet is a big butt. Okay.
It's always the pet, It's always the pet. Always pulling aggro.
Yeah. Uh-oh. We have a very they're healing you. Are they healing you? Uh-oh.
I don't know. Hopefully.
They did.
Level up. There we
They
go.
got you.
There you go.
The
We
level
leveled
up.
up.
Save the day.
Level up.
Save.
The big level up save. Clutch.
So I also made an enchanter because they are a very crowd control heavy. I just thought it would be really fun to have an auto attack as an actual pet, so it does actually die. It has a duration. But that's the auto attack. I always find it completely useless that they give mages and casters that can't go anywhere near a mob a dagger to go auto attack something they can't get close to. And I thought that's kind of dumb. I feel a little bit that, we don't want a glass mage, auto attacking a monster. Yes, we have wands, but I just figured, maybe we could have it a little more interactive. So we gave a pet mentality, which I thought would be kind of fun. Because it's just, once again, it's not that mindless repetition. We want to make them think about it, except to recast it. It's something that, once again, breaks things like my sleep. So I have to make sure that it doesn't hate me. Um, but that's another thing we wanted to bring in, is showing like group compatibility and how important it is for whether you're a rogue or mage, that you also can have other roles by going and looting a tree to actually help save your team, and not just, I guess as a healer, I was so not in love with staring at bars on your screen. Like when you're in a raid, like all you stare at is health bars
Hmm.
and, decursing, all of those things. And so we really wanted to bring in the mentality of social. Look at them just leaving me behind. Look at this. What is this? Look at this tank.
We get repops.
Typical tank.
Wow.
Over here. Typical. Look at this, tank just leaving everybody behind. Anybody else have a tank like that,
This is my first time playing tank, so
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't main tank
Uh-huh.
ever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Never.
yeah. We all know
Excuses.
that's exactly. We all know that's a load of poop.
Quick question for y'all from chat
Yeah.
here. There's
Yeah.
been a few questions about servers and player limits and stuff like that. The main
Yeah.
one is they're wondering if you have a max player number on the server, if you're using things like instant shards, or how that's all
Yeah,
handled,
so
and what those limits are for you.
that's one thing that we're going to be stress testing a lot. And when it comes to, so the reason we're doing, one zone is one server is partly due to that, and it also is partly to do with the fact that when it doesn't matter what game engine you use, when you start to do open world things, you really start to break off into very deep
And
custom code of things. And so um, on the server side of things, we're going to be doing the simple, very classic. It's a zone. You load into it. That's a zone server. Then you're going to hit zone lines, and then basically your character is going to get transferred over to a different server, and that'll be its own thing, and it'll work fine. When it comes to how many people we want to get into one zone is where the question mark becomes of vertical third itself and how much we're able to optimize and push the limits of that.
yeah.
And that's where we're really trying to um, test things and find out where the limits are. Everyone that like does multiplayer knows there are limits somewhere there, right? But it's always a question of debate because that number depends on your entire game architecture and how it's functioning throughout everything. And so there's things like different games will require different things, and like a game like some sort of like tactical shooter like Counter-Strike, well, they need to run animations on the server because if you're a sniper and you shoot someone's toe, you can kill them. So you need to know where that toe is at all times. Whereas a game like a classic MMO, you don't need to run animations on the server. So that's a huge like optimization savings that you can do with just that alone. And through our experience with Vertical Third itself, we're that's been a huge thing that I've had a focus on is how do we reduce server complexity from both a CPU optimization standpoint, from a bandwidth standpoint, from a replication standpoint, all of these kind of different things. And the goal here is like that's one of those big things that we really want to share and provide is one, I have a big chip on my shoulder just to show how powerful blueprint programming is and how much you can do with it. And a lot of people would say that you can't do what we're doing right now with blueprint code, right? And we're doing it. And so
Yep.
these are the things that we want to push the limits to as far as we can possibly go and share that with the community of this is a single blueprint coded dedicated server running, we have probably a couple hundred monsters right now. Some are standing still, some are patrolling. And we want to find that exact number. And that's part of what this process is going to kind of uncover and unveil. And we would love to be at the point where we have a couple hundred people in one zone. That would be the ultimate goal of things. And but that also depends on that might be dependent on per zone on how many monsters are everywhere, and that type of thing. So it's one of those things that it's going to be a constant push for us to basically profile our current. Someone needs to get a tree. Okay, there we go.
I'm getting it now.
We're getting into higher level territory here.
We're in high level stuff right now.
Yep. The level 8 mercenaries here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really something that we're pushing. And like even like the even a service provider, right? Like right now we use PlayFab through Microsoft, but we might find for whatever reason that Amazon GameLift provides better performance.
Yep.
And then right now we're using Windows servers because they're just easier to get going, whereas in the future we might do Linux servers. And so there's all these, and on top of it all, on top of that entire kind of statement, we're building an indie MMO, and we have to be very careful about costs. And so we're using all of our technology stack to be to reduce costs as much as possible. Part of that is using the Epic Game Store. Part of that is going to be using Epic Online Services. And so we're being very careful about anything that could add to our burn rate in the future from a financial perspective. And when you get into server things, they can charge you on bandwidth, they can charge you on compute costs, and compute costs is like the difference between like if you're running like a match 3 game in the cloud, it's not going to use much compute costs versus some sort of like AI algorithm, generative thing that's compiling like crazy stuff in the cloud. And so that can vary your costs as well. And then there's your obviously like your server uptime costs and different things like that. But so we're looking at things as much as possible from a very wide perspective, both from gameplay, both from technical, but also cost as well. And so the big thing I always say is like there's a lot of like successful or semi-successful MMOs out there, but there's a huge MMO graveyard, and it's really important to pick out, like why did those fail, where they went wrong, and to try and learn as much as possible from the mistakes that they may have made. And one of those is a big one is trying to reinvent the wheel on technology that maybe already exists that you can use. And that is a huge one of we're building a classic MMO. We know what direction we want to go with that. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can do a zone-based game that can feel really populated with a couple hundred people in the zone. And so we're really trying to make sure we stick to the focus of we want to build a great game and not just some new technology type thing that in the past has been a big part of why MMOs enter development hell or have problems during the process. And
Let's go over to the right. You
right.
can actually go to my screen if you want. I think we're going to travel over this location real quick. Just making sure, because he's talking. We're going the right direction. Sway. Tanks never really usually know where they're going. They're just kind of like, in a dungeon, they're just like, just go straight. It's straight. Whatever that is, go
Charge
that
in
way.
And worry about everything else later.
Yep, right? Yep. Not check if anybody has mana. That's not a thing.
What is mana? Mana is just a concept in your mind. Okay.
Nobody's checking. I just saw
I'm
that
getting
our
so many
cleric was like,
flashbacks right
"Oom."
now.
Yeah, our cleric was and he was just like pulling stuff, and I'm like, "Yep, yep, yep." I'm like running around trying to find trees.
I really, really love the concept of the trees, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I like that the rest of the party can be involved in supporting everyone, even if they're
Yes.
not an actual support role necessarily.
Yes.
So that is a really cool addition.
That
Yeah.
that reminds me, I'm going to make a point earlier. One of the things that traditionally, like sometimes support classes aren't aren't can sometimes be not as played as much or whatnot, and I feel like that's a really big just UX experience that's lacking a lot of UX. And the kind of example I like to give people is if you're maybe, and I was in EverQuest, I was a shaman, and so we're known as like really big buffers. And it can kind of feel a little lackluster in gameplay sometimes when you just buff a bunch of people and then you just sit there and you don't really, you know, you're doing your job, but you don't really feel it as much.
Yeah.
And maybe that can, for some people, that's going to translate into it's not as fun, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you are a buffer and you give everyone a proc, and all of a sudden you can see everyone's proc damage that's triggering because of your buffs, it's a lot better receptive feedback on um, your experience as a support class. And
Mm.
so it's one of those things that we really want to experience or like innovate on gameplay a little bit with support classes because we love support classes and they do so much for your team. And we really want to make sure that there's like those receptors there that are giving you those so-called like big damage numbers or feeling that a big heal crit or something like that. That we just pulled like 4 things.
Yeah, I gotta bring it back over the bridge. Bring it over the bridge.
Some of them
Bring it
are
back.
low level.
I've got it.
We'll get the big guy.
I do
Oh,
really
we
love the
pulled the
idea
big.
of that.
Oh no. Look how many
We
we
pulled
pulled,
like the
guys.
whole
Look.
zone. Someone trained
Oh.
us.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine,
Okay,
I'm
so
sure.
this is me dealing with
This is why you have a support class as a Tanner, okay?
this is why I am the support class here.
All right, perfect mez situation here. Got a mage loose. Got a mez the mage.
No, that one you guys who undid that one? Somebody's undoing these.
I'm gonna get this big
Ah,
skeleton, this Fury thing. I think
yes,
they hit hard.
they do. That ouch. That ouch.
That did, ouch.
That ouchies. So now as you can see, all these things really hate me. And so I have a high threat, and I have to make sure that I kind of get rid of that threat before it actually comes at me. So luckily, this one, go after the archer that's right by you after that.
Okay.
That's right next to you. I'll take the 6 here. But can't put that on in combat, but yeah, see, this is crowd control king right here. See, that could have gone bad. That could have gone real bad, peeps. That could have gone bad. Because those skeletons hurt. Like it halved me in one hit. Like,
Yeah.
I get
they have a flurry.
yeah,
Yeah.
it hurts. And then they have like a cripple, which I feel like I just die in 2 hits from those things. So it's not fun.
Glass cannon. What can you say?
Yeah. Yeah, glass cannon,
They have their
exactly.
time and place.
They do.
I do love that I can actively see the tactics and the teamwork that has to happen, even just running about with, I was going to say with trash mobs, if
Yeah.
folks
Yeah.
know what that phrase is anymore. I feel like I throw out all these terms and half the time nobody even knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I know.
But I love that you get to collaborate and actually work together, even just out and exploring the world, not necessarily in a dedicated dungeon or something like that.
Yes.
No, and that goes back to as well. We may not have instance dungeons.
Yeah.
We're taking the first approach we're going to take is everything's open world, but we may have to layer those. If we hit capacity in one zone, we might just open up another zone from a server stress load perspective. And so there's this situation where we might not have instance dungeons at all, and there's just going to be multiple versions of that dungeon open at a time. And of course, after you have a big battle, and get some experience, you need to eat some tacos.
Yes.
So we put some a taco quest in.
As you do.
Right? Yeah. So it's Taco Thursday.
It is Taco
Um,
Thursday. It's close
so we're gonna eat
enough.
some tacos. Just
Start for the
stand by
tea, I'm
for a
down for it.
moment.
Real
Yeah.
quick. We just thought, we'd have a table, eat some tacos, and then I thought I would show you this adorable space that I made. I have a dad that was an architect. I grew up around an architect my whole life, and so that's probably why I love to world build. Specifically, is I love architecture. And so I decided to make this little place. These are all separate items. I modulared the whole thing. There is a basement in here, which you probably can see a little bit there. But the area here, I really wanted a cool space that we're gonna go deliver this to our dude right here. But I really wanted some cool skyline spots, and I wish it was freaking daytime because the skyline is so cool along these areas. I really wanted to bring that in, which I thought would be a fun little tactic. You know, just because you're an indie doesn't mean you can't have a grand cinematic feel. I think that's what I always try to push with indies. Just because we have a small budget, we don't have small brains, we don't have small imaginations. And I feel like let's just, stick it to the big guy and, be better than them because that's truth. And so but on the side of the big guy being awesome, this is one thing where we really wanted to push was Epic Games in general, is that we're kind of like doing the same model, and Chris probably could go into that more about Fortnite and how Unreal Engine plays a big factor in how Fortnite makes our tools better in Unreal Engine.
Yeah. So we've spoken a bit about that. While I talk here, let's walk over to this. So that was the main sort of different areas that we've kind of built out so far. We do have other monsters around, but we're still improving the different monsters there. And
Yes.
so we're going to take you over to a future area that is going to
Under development. It's not done yet.
likely be our first dungeon zone.
Uh-oh. We're not gonna be able to take this by ourselves. Our friends are gone. Oh, good. We got a healer. Yay.
Lady.
The mage is gone. They've been lost.
Yep. They're lost in the fridge, They're in the fridge. I see them. Lost in the fridge.
But yeah, the big thing here is, like we've mentioned already, is we're an indie MMO, but Vertical Third's also indie tech, and so we want to follow Epic's suit kind of path with Unreal Engine improves Fortnite, and Fortnite improves Unreal Engine, and so that's really the path we want to take with this. Is Vertical Third improves Runes of Terran, and Runes of Terran improve Vertical Third, and so really having that tried and true tested product. We all know that there's game engines out there that don't build their own games, and there's a very distinct experience that feels like is missing from it because of that. And so that's something that we want to, sometimes they call it like eating your own dog food type thing, and like making sure that you really understand your product's own problems and where they can improve. And so I already have
those are too high over here.
A very big bucket list of improvements for Vertical Third that we'll be getting to over the next year.
Good, he disabled the monsters over here. These were all like level 26. I'm like, we're gonna die. We're gonna die from all the ghosts. Yeah. The ghosts are gonna kill us.
Yeah. But this is going to be our undead area, and so it's going to have a lot of like ghouls and zombies and skeletons. For those EverQuest people, you might remember Unrest. There was
this is under development.
Memory.
No, this is the behind the scenes. I haven't finished lighting in here.
Yeah.
This is our bones I've carved out. And so this is all going to be ghosts are going to be in here. We're going to have different platforms, but we really wanted that mentality of back in the day. A lot of open world dungeons were a huge thing. And so we really wanted this mentality where sometimes people would just camp over in the side, and then they would just go and pull a certain amount of mobs depending on their actual team. Where then you'd have like the more elitist teams going in there and trying to take out much more than that, like better names, those kind of things. And so that's something that we really wanted to push is open world of being able to see somebody pass you by that's actually in the same dungeon. So in a lot of ways, there could be trains in some aspects, we know. But because it is instant based, we didn't, oh, we're missing that beautiful light that's about to go away. Oh, moonlight's just past. Look, you see it. See it. Bye. Bye, moonlight. Bye. It was nice to think about you for a minute. See, Tina,
We
he was
got a
there.
sneak
You
peek
Well,
of the
saw.
cinema. Yeah.
You know, we can't control the weather in real life, but we sure as heck can control it in our game. So we have to add the
Yes.
options for that.
Yes.
I
That
do
would be
like the
cool.
ambiance. I know it's under development, but I get the
Yes.
vibes.
Yes, that's what we're trying to go for. I'm gonna be like fitting this up together. See, this is pooped out right here. You know, this is like completely under development. I'm like, you sure you want to show this? I haven't even gotten to touch it yet. I've barely gotten to touch it yet. It's not
It's
fair.
spooky. Looks
It's like
cool.
it's
Okay.
spooky. It's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
alrighty.
That's one thing
It
I've
was spooky,
noticed.
especially at night.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've haven't completely understood. I've seen a lot of feedback where people do enjoy when a game gets really, really dark.
Yeah.
And as someone who played EverQuest and who was a barbarian that couldn't see anything, like couldn't see 2 feet in front of
Bad
his face,
eyesight.
and you know, it's a
Yes.
quality of life experience I don't want to go back to. And so,
I don't want it pitch dark, like, the point to where it's like the darkest of space, but I I would like it spooky and still like I want it to have almost like a dark elf vibe. I definitely want like a dark elf vibe in there. But
Mm.
yeah, we're really trying to also utilize in the zone based is what we were also trying to show you, which I forgot to mention, is how deep that is. We're really trying to utilize the mentality of in the engine of how much space you have, vertical space in one instance, and really thinking about layering that way. And that's how you can kind of layer um, a world and not be open world, right? You can still make the world feel super big and not be this like, oh, well, sorry, only AAA can do that. It's it's funny because EverQuest is not based on that. World of Warcraft is wasn't really based on that kind of mentality. They have instances all throughout their entire world. And so people do forget the old school mentality of builds. Um, and so that is something more an indie focused can do. Now, obviously, this town is also under construction, but we're going to go up there because they're going up there. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to
I
do.
just want to point out too that Kristen has hand placed all of these
Yes.
shrub. Like she has a very specific art direction, and
Mhm.
she's hand placed all of these trees and these shrubbery. We really
Yes.
wanted to get a good gathering feel because that's love gathering resources for crafting. We do want to have crafting as a really in-depth system. But she's also keeping mind in the spacing for combat because we also want you to be able to kite things and have
Yep.
like in EverQuest days, there was a lot of these different tactics that we felt were lost, and there was fear kiting or charm kiting or snare kiting, and um, there's pet tanking and all these unique kind of experiences that she's planning for. And so you talk about that in your town here as well.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I have placed every single one of these. These are all we actually have tools in our engine that I actually Chris made that are pretty amazing and they all are functionality. As you can see, every foliage in here is functionable and I had to actually place those things. I think there's an importance to a world builder. I feel like how world building is done is a little more auto-generated and I think that's all good and dandy, and we should always use those mentalities to help us as artists. But I also think there is a value in understanding space and understanding layout and the feel that you want to bring your player to. I feel like that's something that artists haven't really gotten to kind of have been taken away from artists in a lot of ways in our industry. And if people kind of just relate to it as, oh yeah, this will be fine, just auto-generated, it looks fine. And I feel like there is a difference between making feel an organic mentality paths, like where you would normally see people walk in the real world. And it's also a great way to use for your as a developer to guide your players to where you want them to go. So think of it like a breadcrumb mentality, right? Think about that breadcrumb and following the end of the gingerbread house. And so when I place things, I'm also trying to make people feel like they have some sense of realization of where they're located. Where are they? Where could they go? And I feel like that's something that if an auto-generated process is in, it kind of gets taken away because a computer doesn't really think about that. Computer doesn't really think about exactly where feet are going to go and what people would be drawn to. That's not something that you can take away out of a person compared to a computer. And so I want to mention that game development is a beautiful process, and we definitely want to take out that heart that's there because computers are awesome. AI can be amazing in so many situations, but in some situations, it can feel very robotic and it loses a lot of soul. So I think if you really want your game to really come out and feel unique, remember these are humans playing your game. They're not a computer. You have humans playing your game. Remember that. And they're going to recognize those things. They're going to notice those mentalities because players do care about the human touch. No matter what, they like it. When we see handmade and we actually see somebody going making that, it matters to us. We see appreciation to that. And so remember, like, remind players that it takes us a long time to build games and it takes our heart and it takes our soul and it takes everything about us to be able to make something great. So that is my little emotional rant before I tear up like a girl over here. Sappy girl over here. I like being a sappy girl. I think we're strong. And I think emotion brings strength. So, that's just my love for our industry.
Yeah, it just
Well,
shows
not
you're
our industry,
passionate about
our
what you
passion.
do. Not
Yeah,
a
our
bad thing
passion.
at all.
Yeah.
And I can probably stop gameplay here in a second here. If you can just cut to me for a second. Um, you know, this is a little bit of a meme, okay? But we're 4 months in and we can swim. Okay. If you know, you know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some games that you might have played in your life that have really big budget and you can't swim in them.
Yeah.
And
So,
I just want to mention passion is important
yeah.
in our industry and it does matter who makes your games. And if I can say that that is a big part of what has been lost in some games is that art. And so I think if we're lucky where there's a lot of studios coming around that are making smaller teams. And that's amazing because we're being able to actually see their hearts now. We're being able to see developers come into showing what they've always been, submitting. Hey, we should put this in the game. Players would really like this. We should do this. This is what we should be doing. And nobody's listening, right? And finally, we're going to be starting to see more smaller teams come in. You're going to start to see that, right? You're going to start to see those voices being heard. And so developers are a huge part of the process. We have not been able to really voice our passions. And that's why we became developers in the first place.
Yeah. And the
The sole
tools
reason.
couldn't be better today, right? Like when we started out in this industry in 2015, services like PlayFab and GameLab didn't exist. And so you'd always have to build your own stuff. And not too much longer before that, like 2010, like some of these engines weren't even at the state they are, right? And so the tools are just so much more advanced in today's day. It's such a time for indies to really shine, and that we can't obviously express enough uh, gratitude toward Epic and their gears towards indies and the better revenue share
Yeah.
models and all these things make it even like so much better as well. And so it's such a good time to be an indie dev.
Yeah, and that's actually why we were so lucky that we were valued so much at Epic, that they actually hired us for a long while. We were there for like 2 years. And so we obviously they're always like trying to push us stuff in general. Epic's great. And so For anybody that does know that we do have that epic background, and we really are excited to be a part of that, which is why we push this mentality, is because we do know behind the scenes of how much Unreal does actually care about their developers. And so this is something that if we can show what we can do for people that don't have those answers and that gatekeep information, then we've done something even bigger than just make a game, right? We've done connecting other developers with other developers. And that's something that is been, when we were starting out, was pretty much non-existent. So I think Tina could probably resonate with that, is the fact that we all felt pretty alone. And so it was definitely uh, cool to be able to have a great team like Epic Games and the Unreal Engine side of it as well. Just really being such a pro indie supporter.
This,
I know,
getting to
right?
me.
I know. I'm like tearing myself up.
All the feels.
Dang. All the feels. Ugh, all the feels. I'm like, focus, drink water.
Well, thank you so much for walking through what you have of the game so far. Again, I really want to reiterate that because this was 5 months, 4 or 5 months of work
Yeah.
that we got to see here
Yeah.
already, which is pretty wild.
I know.
With fully functioning inventory systems, multiplayer enabled, combat, multiple different types of enemies, different class styles as well. There's a ton that's already in here. Swimming as well. Yes,
Yes.
swimming. So that is insane, the amount of work on the actual game that is done. And of course, like you said, it's because you spent so much time beforehand on the tools that have enabled you to do this. But still, I appreciate you walking through and showing us what you've been able to make so far in a really relatively short period of time.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah, it's gonna be
so
an exciting
much.
journey, and the end product and like and releasing the game itself. And that's one like little small thing. We from a monetization's perspective, like there's not gonna be no pay to win, no pay to convenience.
Yeah.
We're gonna do our best to actually be a pure like indie subscription model. We don't know what the price is yet. It's probably gonna be somewhere in the $8 range, but nothing's for sure. And then if we can maintain it to just be a subscription model. We loved that back in the day, that the routine subscription price would motivate you to build a great game, and you didn't have to worry about cosmetics. The reality of game business is sometimes you need cosmetics in your game, and so to support your development and support your developers and continued development of your game. But in the best world, it would be a single subscription only. And the end goal of releasing is just part of the journey. We can't wait to have a lot of play tests with our community and have a lot of fun with it. That's one thing that during our actual development, like we see with like a taco quest and picking up some burbs, like we really just want to have some fun with the development process and
Which
not,
you can
you know,
tell Mr. Slow Walker over here with
I'm
his
RP walking.
he's RP.
Yeah. You gotta RP walk.
Sorry,
Like,
hard to laugh. I mean, I'm sitting over here like, oh, you're walking
yeah,
very
this is
slow.
25% of MMOers right here. Taking screenshots of your character, okay? Like,
Yeah.
you know?
RP walking and screenshotting with your camera at the front of your character.
Yep,
And
This
bouncing
is
on
half
top
the
of
experience.
houses, right? And
yep,
bouncing on top of houses,
yep.
anywhere you can. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if y'all are open for it, we've been gathering some questions from chat throughout, and I figured we could maybe tackle some of those as well.
Sounds good.
But awesome.
Sounds great.
Some of these may have also partially been answered just throughout, but I
Hey,
figure in case anyone came in
go for
halfway
it.
through or might have missed something, I'll toss them out there anyway. So first question I have here is a great question. Once I
Someone
find
does
it.
like your slow
All right, we'll get
walking
there.
though, Chris. Someone is enjoying
Good.
it. I just want to
Trying to get the
mention,
good
I see
angles
it.
here. You know?
They're like, this is some good angles. Hey, at least he's looking not at the floor. That's like I always make a joke. You always know when you have a creative and you have an engineer. An engineer looks straight at the floor and a creative looks up, right? You know it. It's a fact. It's a fact.
or
They're just,
down.
I
I'm
would
like,
never.
did you have to look at just the floor? You know, there's like a sky, there's like a horizon, there's like a whole world that's out
There's
there.
a world around you. No, doesn't matter. Doesn't
Nope.
matter. They need to look at the
Whole
pathing,
new
and I get it.
world.
Like when we were working with some people at Epic, they did the same thing. They just like took pictures. I'm like, oh, there's the engineer, there's the creative, you know. You can always pick them out. You know?
Yeah.
It was always fun.
So first question I have for y'all, there's some question about the combat, and specifically they're wondering if the enemies are using AI, and if so, is it only through blueprint scripting, and how you went about that?
Yeah, so if Vertical Third, I have created my own kind of system um for AI. And so something's going wonky with my character at the moment.
Take a screenshot, quick. This is
Yep.
this is the time.
There's a perfect RP walk right there.
So we have a
yeah.
glitch that we don't have the weather. Like
This is a new one. I don't know what's going on here. Something's you ruined my epic RP walks here, but
walked too slow. It's like, nope, stop. Pose.
something's pushing me forward. I don't even know what that is, but
no. Oh, you can show them how to reset though. You can show them how to reset though.
Let me take
that you can show.
Chat thinks it's an invisible horse, and I tend to agree with him.
That sounds about
that or
right.
a visible taco table, one or the other, right? Like Chris was
yeah.
at one point, I was like, could we maybe not have to loot 12 tacos? Like, I mean,
but that's realistic.
It is.
Only
You're
3
a warrior.
is not
You
realistic.
just spent a few hours killing monsters. Like, you need 12 tacos. I can eat 12 tacos at Jack in the Box. Like,
yeah. You can also reconnect to the server and show them that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Right at the bottom.
Let me relaunch.
Sorry, I feel so bad because he was making a comment. He was saying it, but then I was like, knowing his mind, I know him. 20 years, guys. I know him so well. I just do. I just know him so well.
Before we answer that question, I do want to make sure that I let you know that chat is like formally requesting that invisible horse is added as a weather effect, and I just I really wanted to make sure.
Okay. Perfect.
As a weather effect. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. As a weather effect. Right. This sounds great. This sounds great.
I need to write that down because that sounds
it's in the
amazing.
Notes. It's official.
There we go.
It's in the notes. And the notepad is very official.
Yeah, here's the official.
Here it is. This is the notepad.
Effects.
Can they see your screen right now, Chris? Dan might be able to show your screen if you're sharing it.
My login is still jittery. It's still bouncing me around. What is going on?
We'll start the note. Start it here.
These damn horses.
But yeah, so yeah, there was the question about if you're using AI for any of your combat, your enemies, and if that's blueprint based.
Yes.
Yes. So everything's blueprint based. I'm still glitching. I have no idea what's going on, but hopefully I will get my brain to not think about that. But
close it out and restart.
Yes. Why don't you switch to Kristen for the visuals there? Well, these horses take me over. So in Vertical Third, when I was doing performance, yeah, they're everywhere. We're getting swarmed.
Of course. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Maybe it's a server problem, but anyways, the AI is a custom. I do everything through Blueprint code, and so it's not using Unreal's built-in Blackboard system. I was trying to be as performant as possible, and so I really tried to do a custom solution that really focused on limiting how many times per tick the AI is thinking. And so I have a full custom solution for AI. And we have a vertical third featured on Inside Unreal as well. It was a couple years back. That kind of talks a bit more detail. But my work through the game architecture is trying to break down what are the most common denominators on AI's thinking and what they need to do. The first one was, if I can remember this off the top of my head, it was like a defense state. So if anything's close to you, that's a state where it can activate this ability. But it has to be within a certain range. If it's outside that range, it will never use that ability. Then it'll rotate to an engage state. And so if it's actually chasing someone and they're out of range, they're able to activate these abilities. Then it goes into like a debuff and buff and heal. And so it'll kind of scan nearby monsters. If anyone's low on health, it'll try and heal them. And then it will also randomly cast a debuff or buff on targets, should they have those abilities kind of put into everything. And so, and then the final state is offense, and that's their normal attack rotation. And these are just generic categories. Like even in the heal state, you could have, oh, it detected that this monster or this ally monster was at 70% health. I'm going to cast a big AoE explosion on that monster as a result of that ability. And so you can have as few abilities as you need, or as many as you want. You can have, just a single, like a lot of our monsters just had a single attack in offense, right? And so it doesn't have to do a lot of complex thinking. It's just looking for those core states to activate different abilities on. And so I've developed a whole system for that, and it's trying to make sure that it's thinking in that MMO environment where you have like hundreds of NPCs on a server potentially live. You need to limit how much they're utilizing on tick and like every second. And I try to do my best to throttle that as much as possible. And I think in my recent versions as well, I even made a spawn manager that if players aren't in the area, it's going to disable those AI if they're like maybe they're wandering, and that just those lots of AIs wandering around and actually add a lot of performance load. And so if you're detecting which players are in the area, you can actually disable all those spawners or put them into like a stasis type of state. So they're not wandering around, they're not thinking, and they're not actively taking CPU resources away. And so it's a lot of those type of things that you can really kind of play with to maximize performance. And that goes back to uh, we're through Ruins of Terran, we really want to profile as much as we can and push the limits of a single dedicated server from Unreal Engine, and share with the Unreal community on these are our performance tips. These are what we are doing, and these are how many players and AI we're getting on a server at one time, and how can we push that even further. And so like there is for a while there, I think they've transitioning to it. I can't remember the new name, but at the end of Unreal 4 cycle, there was the replication graph. And right now there is net relevancy, which is a distance-based check. And you might have seen some of the foliage and trees and things disappearing in and out of range. And that's the net relevancy kicking off of, okay, this player is this far away from this replicated actor. We're not going to replicate to them because we're going to save performance on that. And the replication graph was the next step to that, where not only are we going to, that distance kind of check can actually take up a lot of CPU performance. We're going to do it more grid based. And if you're not in that grid, we're not going to do any type of distance checks on top of it. And then there's different things like net dormancy and other, there's a whole load of different factors for optimization, both on the CPU side, but also the bandwidth side and replication side. And so multiplayer has always been a huge focus for us with Vertical Third. It's always been the ground up built to be multiplayer. And so we have many different factors of how we're pushing the limits of that.
That's awesome. The next question I have here for y'all is, since you mentioned that you're going to be leaning very heavily into the dungeon aspect of the game in the future, they're wondering if you plan on having the dungeons as also open server, or if they will be shards or instanced per individual, per group, however.
That's something we're going to play with. Again, we're going to start with everything being open, because that was more the again, when it comes to both our inspirations from WoW and EverQuest, we want to be somewhere in the middle. We don't want to lean too hard EverQuest or too hard WoW, and so we're going to start with everything open world, and then if too many people, we hit that so-called per player cap, then we'll open up a new instance of that dungeon for more people to join. And there might be some like different rules, and like every obviously a dungeon's going to have a lot of different named monsters. Like we're huge people for different camping, different areas, and camping items was a great experience for us. And having a deep dungeon that has like low levels content at the top, and then you have high level players traveling down to the bottom. That was also like a really nice social aspect of things. You have like this big wide range of player levels in one zone and seeing each other kind of flow back and forth. And then you're getting like high level players that come by and help the low levels sometimes and give them things and buff them. And the low levels can like ooh and ah at the big epic, players and stuff like that. So we want to really mingle the character levels a lot in a zone. And so we want to have a lot of different named monsters to to do different camps and create that social experience. So what we're really trying to drive is that social experience. And as we all know, like when it comes to matchmaking for a dungeon, it can you need that convenience if you're trying to queue up. You're someone that loves dungeons, like myself, and you want to go do a dungeon. The old experience is you run to that dungeon, you try and group up, you talk to people, and you go in. But the reality in today's day is like it's too time consuming to wait around and find people for a dungeon, and so it's like by forcing people to like run to a dungeon or not having a matchmaking system, it can kind of like it can just take a lot of the social aspects of it out of the game. And so if we have a zone just full of people that have varying different ways, like we really want to play with the different like you can solo at the top and then you get a group and then you just start forming down below. So you're not like wasting all that time just trying to find people. There are solo activities you can do while you wait for people to come by with the group type thing. And so we're trying to drive those social aspects.
If you want to look at my screen, Dan, you can. This is inside the engine here. I do have inside the engine here. I just thought I should bring it up. And on the side note of us talking about placing individual things, I thought that would be kind of cool for you to see. This is like tools that we obviously have made personally. Um, these are really cool. So I will hide them so you kind of see that a little bit. As you see right here, this is all been placed by our tool. And this is spawners that are interactive foliage. And this goes throughout the entire world pretty much. Obviously, we have this part that's foliage, that's the grass. That's the only thing that really is that. And when we want to actually toggle that, you can see how many placeholders there are actually here. So you can see that behind the scene mentality. These are all individuals, and then you show them. They will say, okay, we're showing, and now you'll see here all the foliage stages from here.
And the yellow boxes is my
Yep.
world loot spawner
Yep.
we've created, and
Yep.
has different variations of where you can set the data table for that loot and the different spawn cycles if it's 30 seconds or 40 seconds or
So I
maybe
thought I
just
should
say
mention those cool things, just because they are unique to like the development side of it. And these are our actual, I'll show you what they do. So this is what I'm a very specific artist, okay? I like my trees in a very important way. Um, so if I have trees right here, for example, I can scale this with an actual zoom in and zoom out. I can turn it by holding shift, placing it around because I like the position of certain trees. I feel it's important to care about shape, angle, and how something looks, whether it's being placed in a formation of, okay, that tree's really tall. Maybe I'd want a smaller tree. And if I want to go smaller, because sometimes I think outside of the box of I might go, okay, I want this actually even smaller. I'll go make this smaller. Why am I not being able to make this? There we go. I can make this smaller if I choose. You know what I mean? So if like, oh hey, I really want this view from an actual player's perspective to see, I'm always thinking about that when a player is going through the world. I want them to have like an immersive feeling of a world they can connect to. Because like when I was growing up, um, it wasn't very common to have like other people that gamed around me, and so worlds like this made me feel more connected to the world that we live in. And I guess I want to make sure that when we build our world, we're always thinking about like actually creating an experience for players to go through and making them feel a sense of hominess,
Yeah.
whether that even is being a little bit scared, because life is scary, life is scary. Um, so I just want to show you the tool side of it. We even have like snow parts. These are all things that you can loot that are going to be eventually craftable items as well. And I get to actually pick through them. There's different sizes and different types. I have our trees that are very specific here that these are placing in the world that I have right here. Oh, wrong one. My mushrooms. What am I doing? A, here we go. And then B. These two, and I can like once again change the siding of them. And that's where I'll actually place all of these things. So like here, it's my this is my shrub. So these are what I place around. So I will like change how I want to make an actual area feel like. And so I just thought it would be kind of fun to see, like we're tool builders. That's what we do. That's something that we're really passionate about. And we feel like that's a big part of game development in a small indie development process is that tools are what's going to make you keep up with the big guys. If you want to know how you can keep up with them, outsmart them. You might not have the money, but you have the tools to get there. And that's the key. Is don't always think about money as being your stopping point. We hear this all the time in our Discord channel. Oh, well, if only funding was different, or our industry is kind of in a weird situation right now. We know this publicly. This is a weird, complicated situation. But in my opinion, it is not a time that we should feel that our industry is dying. I call it the shift. We're seeing a big shift in our industry, and that's people that weren't able to voice their opinions in development, and they're going off and making their own studios, their own projects, and they're looking for resources to be able to actually make that possible. And so there are some studios that we talk to that are, using us, but that's not what I'm trying to push here. I'm just mentioning that tools are why we are so far. Tools are why we are ahead, and that is why we're going to make this possible. It's not because we're just, oh, it's a two-person team, so you can't make that possible. We'll see you in 10 years. Well, technically, we've been working on this for 7 years in our tools, and that's why we can actually now start to implement content and actual, patches. And we're going to be hopefully, when people are watching, we're going to be doing like actual raid bosses and implementing them. And so seeing the difference of that and um, being able to put, like I said, dungeons in a more outworld situation. We're hoping that maybe eventually a dragon or something starts walking around. And maybe you have to watch out for them. Like it's that kind of mentality that we want to be able to implement, and tools will allow you to get there. Tools will make sure that you actually get there in less than 10 years because, all of us can't live off ramen all the time. So
Speak for yourself. No.
the ramen stockpile I have in here, because I have celiac disease, I have to go very specific because obviously wheat hates me. But my stockpile of ramen is serious. Yes, it is like a religion for sure. For me, so I'm with you, but it's not the greatest for us. And we definitely, as indies, we definitely don't care much about our health sometimes, and because budgets are small. And so I just want to make sure that tools will allow you to get there quicker and try to connect with your community. Try to, you know, passion is resonating. Like there's so many, even creators out there that are looking for games that have passion and have heart. And that's something that, they're looking to connect with developers like us, all of us here that are in this stream right now watching. We all really enjoy making games and we want to connect to those players because we had a game we always wanted to make in our life. And so I just want to remind you that there are people out there that want to play your game. And so just remember, tools get you places. They allow you to move forward. They allow you to chip at the mountain, but don't just discriminate yourself, because I think that's one thing we even put in our speech when we actually talked at GDC last year for Epic, was that the first thing we hear from a developer is, oh, you know what? Maybe this is too big of a thing. I should just give up. It is so hard for the developers to finish a project. It's hard for them to ship it. And so if I can say, believe in yourself, uh, don't let yourself quit. Remember, passion is important, but also think smart. When, stop working so hard, think smart, and make sure to always think about things that you can do or build if you want to yourself. You choose, but try to think about it as a plan about how you're going to attack that situation, and just chip at it, keep going at it, but don't give up. And you will get there, and you will be able to make as we hear all the time, I want to make like an MMO. We hear that 95% of the time everybody comes in vertical third channel. I want to
But
make an MMO. So how would I do that?
that's the exciting part about the MMO scene is
Yeah.
like we're in this era of the indie MMO, and and even outside the indie MMO space, there's also like we're gone from the days of like the WoW clone, and we're seeing very unique game mechanics being created for these different MMOs that make it very distinctly unique. That other game, like they can't really copy it. Maybe they can, but it would be a dramatically big change for their core audience. So, um, we're it's a very interesting space for potential innovation right now from a game design perspective. And it's just really, really exciting for a place for people to be in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'll do
Um,
one quick little snippet. If you want to switch to me real quick,
Okay.
on the tool front, one, I just want to shout out the Epic Devs, the scriptable tools, which actually came out in 5.5. I think you still have to enable it in the add-ons plugins, but the scriptable tools is where we created all of our foliage placement stuff. So that is amazing. I just wanted to also talk about segmenting your levels into other levels. Like there's the new world composition system. But that's a little bit too much for our kind of dev cycle being very zone based. And so you can drag full levels into your scene, and then you can just click edit, and it hides everything out. And you can see here, these
Yeah.
are the enemy spawners, and they're all in their own level. And I can just quickly select them all. And if I click around, I'm not going to get everything else is not in the way at this point. So I know all the spawners are going to be all listed in here. And then obviously I've just over here was the undead area, which I've actually disabled all the spawners that were there. And so we've done that through not only, AI spawners, but we've also, like I've filtered it through
Our environment.
the environment. The NPCs are on their own layer or their own thing as well. Again, you do that and you can see that only they kind of show up and everything else is whited out. Um, I've also so there's the quest items themselves as well.
The
Little
great
birds here.
organization tip too, when you're creating a game at a kind of like a mass scale and potential, is always think about how you're organizing something so that you don't accidentally delete something you don't realize. And there has been too many times that has happened to me personally. So I maybe not for you, but for me, it has definitely happened to me sometimes that I have. It was devastating, and then for some reason the engine decides to randomly have the fastest save I've ever seen in my life,
mhm.
and you didn't hit save, and it just kind of lagged out, and then it was like the most fastest save you've ever seen in your life, and that was it. That was that was the last time it was there, and you remembered it, but it's gone now. So
That is
And
brutal.
the
the last
brutal
thing,
loss.
the last thing I'll also shout out is the Unreal Engine water system is
Yeah.
phenomenal. It doesn't give you, I guess there's some things that you can do with this natural buoyancy. On our water, the swimming joke I made earlier, I have it set up for the pools, but I haven't created something that goes along the rivers itself. And so you can swim in the pools, but you can't swim in the rivers just yet. But it's one of those things that the way the splines work with the water system is phenomenal. They also have the landscape splines, which allow us to create these pathways going up the mountains. And then if we actually drag and drop, like you can actually, it's like the non-destructive workflow, which is normal, art term. If I remember how to do
Yeah, we were
this
actually
with.
lucky enough to talk at that talk I was talking about at GDC last year. We did a talk with also Chris Murphy, and he's the one that does the water splines. And so Chris Murphy's awesome, and he's super cool dude. You should go check him out if you're ever curious. He is just awesome. And so he is an Australian, and he is awesome. He is so funny. We had a great time at GDC last year, and he's a really cool, in my opinion, resource to have as an indie developer. He's always looking out to try to help others. I'm about to die. Yep, I died. I died. Luckily, you didn't see that, so it's okay. You didn't see it, Tina, so it's okay.
Didn't see it, so
It
it didn't
never
happen.
happened.
Yep.
Yeah,
So that's some of our tools there.
Yeah.
And so we use a ton of data tables in our database.
Yeah.
If we just look up the data tables, these are all our different spawner, like spawn data, ability data, equipment data, like all these different things. We have hundreds, if not 1,000 or so different data tables throughout our project that just like if you pull one up, it just has all the different loot data, and it makes it really easy integration for designers to come in and do their work they need and not have to worry about code or anything like that. So if it's a consumable, if it's a piece of equipment, if the equipment gives abilities, if it's a quest item, what type of animation it uses when you pick it up. All these, there's tons and tons and tons of different things that are just activated through the data itself.
Oh, another term I
awesome.
wanted to mention is that this is in Blueprint, and I love when people have the audacity to say, this isn't code. Blueprint is code. It is code. It is how it is. We need to stop the hate towards other developers. We all love each other. We are all part of each other. And I cannot tell you how many C++ games I have seen crash on a numerous amounts of occasion. And apparently that is the only code that is liable and usable. So I want to mention that as us as indies, we need to remember that there is this like stigma that happens in our industry, whether you're an artist, if you're on Procreate, you're apparently not a real artist if you're not in Adobe Photoshop. There's so many people this is like something that I'm sure artists can explain, that is there is this like stigma that happens that people want to push you down, and then you go and think, well, I can't be a C++ coder, so I guess I just can't make games. And I just want to push that narrative of the fact that that's not true. And we're going to prove it that it's not true.
And
So
Blueprint
I
is
built
also
an
like
MMO with
just
just
drop the
Blueprint.
mic
Yeah.
right on their face, you know?
Blueprints too, like going back to the state of industry, like you do have to work fast, right? You have to get to those ship stages, whether it's just a playtesting date, pitch meeting, or launching your game. And blueprints just are faster. Like I think that's an unquestionable thing that people agree. That if you can work in blueprints, it's
And
extremely
they actually
fast
even had a
to
talk about it
iterate
at
with and
the Epic Fest. Tell them
anything.
about that.
So
The Epic Fest too was talked
yeah,
about.
there's some recent talks from a lot of Epic people on just how powerful and like the pros and cons of it, and the actual like speed differences is it's there, but it's minor. Um, and so you can do a lot with blueprints and stop thinking about blueprints or C++ and think about profiling. If you profile something, then and you find a problem with it and it ends up being blueprints, then okay, maybe you have to convert that to C++ type thing. But don't fray from it until the profiler tells you it's a problem.
Yeah, and there was even like they made a big talk about it at the Epic Fest this last year, and they said the changes in speed is almost microscopically small. It's like almost unheard of, and it had to be very situational as well. It's the type of game, the type of environment that is making a difference. And I love that, we're trying to like all of us, like even at Epic, that are trying to fight that mentality of that's not actual facts. People are saying these comments and they're not actual facts. And so we want to be able to encourage the fact that that is not true, that games cannot be well made in Blueprint. That is 100% unfactual. And there is no data to prove that that's true. And there's more data to prove that it actually works great than there is the other way around. And so I want to just stick up for the Blueprint coders out there. They are coders and they are Blueprint coders, and that is okay. And that means artists that are also coding things in their game, making that is a real thing. We need to be kinder to each other. We're not just segmented in our own wings anymore in a AAA environment. We need to be kinder to each other, and we need to remember that we are all a part of this amazing thing called a game, and we all have our strengths. We all have our, need help sections, but there is a lot of there's a lot of strength in developers when it comes to artists too. There is a lot of artists that don't think that they know how their coding aren't that great, and it's a load of poop. Basically, it's not true at all. And so I want to like stick up and say like, there's no facts to prove that Blueprint isn't great.
Yeah.
There's actually
And
more
hey,
facts to that they ship games and they do really well. So
and that's why we're doing Roots of Heron, right? We want to be that example that everyone can point to that says that's a multiplayer game. It has X, Y, and Z, and it does it wonderful. The performance is great. The costs are great. And it's a successful game and product. So that's what
So
we're striving for.
yeah, and I want to mention just real quick on the topic of just blueprint coding is Chris is completely self-taught. I just want to mention that he built an entire architecture that has gotten 2 big awards, MegaGrant awards from Epic themselves, on how amazing it is, and he is a self-taught coder. Um, they don't teach code the same in games at school. And so I want to mention that believe in yourself. If your resources are obviously there, many are there. And we even did one in Coursera, might have mentioned 5 through 8, just so you know. We actually show you how to make 6 different game types, playable demos. So little prototypes. So I just want to mention that that is possible. Believe in yourself. First and foremost, don't let people discourage you. Because I see the forms and oh my God, oh, if you don't do this, if you don't go to school, you don't get a degree and understand the fundamentals. Well, yes, you do need good structure. You do need to always think about good structure. And that is something he has spent so long caring about is the root and the structure and cement of the entire architecture itself. It is absolutely important and connected. But I just want to mention, I wish games were made like that in a AAA environment half the time because they are not. They are very strapped and band-aid together to get
And
working. So
and part of my journey has like been really figuring out game architecture too. Like there's a lot of talk about like how to build a quest system or how to do combat, but there's not a lot of talks out there about a full game architecture. And so that's something I'll probably create more videos on in the future. But there's a reason why like I think we've mentioned this on the past streams, but there's a reason why you don't see game projects like it's a game, it's been shipped, it's been done. We're gonna release the game projects, right? Like there are band-aid fixes, duct tape here, like get everything working and ship it, right? Because that's just the nature of development, and you have to be a business and you have to ship, and you have to just get out the door and do what you can to get it working and go. And so we're really trying to take that approach of let's learn from our code base, let's fix it, let's continue to improve it, and create that conversation about what is good game architecture. and create more conversations about it, and not just from our perspective, but other people's perspectives, and how it's helping their projects and stuff.
And that's
Yeah.
solely what we mean by like just being not gatekeeping and really just having those conversations that people are curious about. And that's something that they don't hear a lot. They don't realize that in a freaking AAA industry, it is band-aid together sometimes. It is not, and that's like actually more frequent than it is the other way around. It is things are broken everywhere. And they are like, oh, sounds good. It's good. Let go and shoot it out. And we see it all the time. It's something that we all play and we see. So it's not like just indies, it's not any of those things. It is very common in our industry to have that happen. And that's okay. So we just need to, remember, be kind to ourselves. We've got this. Keep working at it. Don't give up, because there is no perfect way of doing everything. We're humans and computers are still flawed. So remember, it just takes work and trying to figure out what is wrong till you get it right. And that's the key.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for all of this today, walking through this wonderful project that you've made, answering some questions, giving us all the pep talk that I think we need right now.
That's what I mean. It's
Um,
so important. And Tina and Dan, they're amazing. I love Tina so much. She is always trying to reach out to other indies to try to voice and be honestly allow you guys to have a great hub of knowledge. And I think that's awesome. So thank the Epic team. I'm sure Amanda is a big part of this. She was amazing back in the day and she's around. She was awesome. I don't get to talk to her much, but she's awesome. And just FYI, great space, guys. Make sure to always tune in on these or watch them later because they're super helpful. There's so many amazing people that come on here and like allow you to pick their brain. And that's what our industry really, really needs is people to be open and allow them to pick their brain.
yeah, absolutely. Like y'all. So thank you for being here and allowing us to pick your brain on these topics and doing all of this. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we say one more time because you have a play test coming up in April, right? As well as kind of low key also right now / over this weekend, right? Just in case anyone came in late and didn't hear that, I want to make sure you could maybe talk about that a little bit, let people know.
Yeah, so playtesting is one of our huge focuses of developing this open and getting a lot of that community feedback. And you may have seen me a little bit earlier, like every playtest we do, it's playtesting is kind of like an onion. Every time you do a playtest, you see all the bad stuff on the outside, you fix those things, and new bad things are on the next layer. So it's constantly kind of figuring out the bumps and grooves as we develop the game. Well, obviously, we have pretty standard classes right now, and so we're going to look for ways to make them more in depth, to have more different skills and abilities, have ability choices that you have to determine for your play style. And then we will love to get feedback on different monster encounters, all these different things, how the world's looking, and just overall gameplay feel. Again, we're very direct in we're making a small level right now, creating all the systems that we want to get implemented, and stress testing, performance testing. Like right now, we don't have persistent saving. That's something that's going to be probably after the next, or will be after the April play test. This was kind of like, hey, we need to make sure we're ready for April, so we did this kind of weekend test. And so, but it's one of those things of let's build our so-called vertical slice as clear as possible and get our classes worked out. We have probably at least 5 other classes that we want to get in. I think there was like the necromancer, the shaman, the monk,
Bard.
bard,
Yeah.
a lot of those classic classes. We do want to like that's another thing from EverQuest days. There was more than just the traditional healer tank,
Mhm.
DPS role, right? There was a puller role. There was
Yep.
crowd control role. And so in some situations there was like the necromancers would give other classes mana, and so that would
Yeah.
help the raid dramatically.
They were like a support in other ways, right? And so we really want to bring back that mentality of not just, tank and spank kind of mentality, or that's your one role, or a game that's just you are everything. So we don't want to do like you are everything. You still need other people, which is why I put those trees in the environment to allow you to, hey, if you're not a healer, you can go and solo still some things. You can go and do things on your own and still feel like, well, I'm not a healer, which I totally understand. But we also don't want to eliminate that healer. And so it's that kind of mentality of, we don't want like, a situation where just you have one class that can, if you just get a whole bunch in a raid, that apparently that's all you need, right? I think we all know which one that one was back in the day.
And going back to like how indie MMOs are, like they're really trying to not be these EverQuest and WoW clones. They're trying to make their own very unique mechanics, and so part of this is going to be that discovery of what our unique mechanics are, and like just some random ideas where like EverQuest you would it was a player run thing where you would have a camp, and it was just a social structure where, oh, people are at that camp, that's theirs. They get to keep it. It's their mobs, right? Could you bring that into a fully featured system into a game? Um, you know, balancing, solo play versus group play, and the benefits of that are going to be our own systems and mechanics as well. And then, all these different things. And so, getting feedback on that as we continue this development journey is going to be really critical.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
like a lot of our phase two is definitely the save and load systems, and that's what we're planning to do. And but we want to just try to stress test as much as we can while we can, and we'll be building along the way. So that's our scoops and our little pinch of information there.
But,
Yeah, which is
and
awesome. So if anyone wants to be able to join in on the play testing and help give feedback and stuff like that, we'll drop your Discord in the chat there.
perfect.
Looks like we've got that. Yep, in there. So if any of y'all are interested in trying out Ruins of Tearyn, make sure you join their Discord and hang out. They're also just wonderful, great people on top of it. So great place to be. But any last things that y'all can think of before we wrap up for today?
I think that's it. There with the state of testing right now, we will you have to message us privately. We will need your Epic Games account ID. This is because we will attach your account because we're not an officially launched product on the Epic Game Store. It's going to be through the dev testing part of the game store itself, which requires your Epic Games account ID, and then we will give you a game key to be able to redeem the game on the Epic Games Store. And that
Basically
will
like a
get you
closed door
to,
invite. It's
yeah,
basically a closed door invite. It allows developers to make sure that they don't get bots or people in their server that aren't supposed to be
yeah,
there. And so it's there to protect the developer and the players as well.
yep. And it's just part of the development testing when you don't have a fully launched product on the Epic Games Store, and we're going to um, allow you to keep playing. So,
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much one last time to our wonderful, amazing guests for walking through Runes of Tearyn today. It looks awesome. I'm excited to see how it continues to develop and get made over time. And I feel like I'm probably going to be pretty obsessed with it personally, but that's just my own bias. And then, of course, also thank you everyone who came to watch the show and ask questions and be here. You being part of this is the whole point, right? We do this for you. We do this so that you can learn new things, so that you can meet other great developers, hopefully get some information, some knowledge, and maybe just some inspiration too along the way. So thank you for being here. If you missed any part of the show and you wanted to go back and rewatch, that's totally fine because we post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channel at Unreal Engine. You can also keep up with us at Unreal Engine on all of our socials for the latest news, updates, highlights, cool stuff all over the place. Lots of cool things go on there. But last but certainly not least, if you haven't already, I also highly recommend that you join us on the Epic developer community. That's where we house our documentation for the engine. That's where we have our forums where you can meet other developers, get answers to your questions. That's also where we have tutorials and learning paths. Pretty much anything you could ever need in regards to not only Unreal Engine, but a lot of our other products and services as well is available there. So check that out if you haven't already. And that's that. We'll see you next week. Next week, we've got plans. We're going to have Universal Foundry that come on, and they're going to be talking about Horde. So if you're interested in Horde, make sure you come around for that one too. But thank you so much, everyone. And one last big thank you to Kristen and Christopher for coming on. And we'll see y'all later.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.